This is Standing Watch. And now, Evangelist Norbert Link.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to our Standing Watch program. Most recent events in the Middle East have seen an escalation between Iran and Saudi Arabia. And this program today will show you why that is, because it's not just political, and what, according to biblical prophecy, the outcome will be. First, I'd like to read to you from an article, a very insightful article by The Telegraph, which was published on January 4, talking about the relationship, or the lack of it, between Iran and Saudi Arabia. And it says, tensions between Saudi Arabia and Iran fundamentally boil down to two things: the battle to be the dominant nation in the Middle East, and the fact the countries represent the regional strongholds of two rival branches of Islam. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is ruled by a Sunni monarchy known as the House of Saud, with 90% of the population adherents of their leader's faith. The Islamic Republic of Iran, meanwhile, is overwhelmingly Shia, with up to 95% of nationals belonging to the denomination. It is the theological divide that really drives the wedge between the two countries, with each unable to accept the legitimacy of the other nation's dominant faith. The Sunni-Shiite conflict is 1,400 years in the making, dating back to the years immediately after the Prophet Muhammad's death in 632. The Prophet died without having appointed a successor, leading to a massive split over the future of the rapidly growing religion. Sunnis believe the Prophet's trusted friend and advisor Abu Bakr was the first rightful leader of Muslims, while Shias believe that Muhammad's cousin and son-in-law Ali was chosen by Allah to hold the title. The tension is not eased by a hadith in which the Prophet was quoted as saying, "My ummah," which means community, "will be fragmented into 73 sects, and all of them will be in hellfire, except one." Inevitably, both Sunnis and Shiites claim to be the one pure Islamic sect. As with any division that lasts over 1,000 years, the Sunni-Shiite split led to each denomination developing its own unique cultures, doctrines, and schools of thought. And so here you have a situation that Sunnis and Shiites are not coming together. And the interesting thing is that you cannot expect a confederation between Sunni and Shiite countries in the Middle East. Now, the Bible doesn't say that's going to happen anyway, but even just looking at the facts, at reality, it is highly, highly undoubtful that that is going to happen. Now, let's turn to what happened recently. Here's an article by Bloomberg dated January 3. In a significant escalation of tensions, Saudi Arabia cut ties with Iran and expelled the Islamic Republic's diplomats a day after its embassy in Tehran was attacked to protest the Saudis' execution of a prominent Shiite cleric. He was one of 47 men executed for offenses that included terrorism and political activism. But there was also a charge of violence and inciting violence, and it's pretty much established that this man never did any of that. The article goes on to say that the escalation probably will undermine already stumbling efforts to end the war in Syria, where Saudi Arabia backs largely Sunni militants and Iran supports the regime of President Bashar al-Assad, the Shiite. Now, Deutsche Welle wrote on January 4 that the timing of the executions was no coincidence. The Saudis knew full well what they were doing and when. And of course, Iran's reactions have been dubious as well, by allowing protesters to storm and vandalize the Saudi embassy in Tehran. The Mullah regime has demonstrated that it is not interested in calming tensions. Iran has declared itself to be the protector of all Shiites, inside and outside Iran. Now, Breitbart added on January 4 that CNN analyst, retired Lieutenant General Mark Hertling, thought it was possible the conflict between Saudi Arabia, Iran, and their respective allies could become a direct military conflict. Now, that concern was echoed by many other commentators. Here's an article by the Times of Israel, dated January 4, saying this: nearly all the actors in the Middle Eastern arena now understand that Tehran will try to attack the Saudi kingdom. Any revenge attack via Shiite actors will draw a Saudi response, which means the Cold War will heat up suddenly into a much more dangerous confrontation between the two countries. From now on, the name of the game in our region is that every country or organization will have to choose a side. What will that do? Now, here the Telegraph again wrote this on January 4. The Persian Gulf has become a strategic tinderbox. Saudi Arabia's drastic decision to behead the Shia cleric al-Nimr marks a point of no return in the bitter Sunni Shiite conflict engulfing the region. It is a dangerous escalation in the kingdom's struggle with Iran. Ali Al-Ahmed, director of the Institute for Gulf Affairs in Washington, said, "The mass executions have set in motion a fateful chain of events that nobody can now control. It will likely trigger a bloody civil war that will not end until the Saudi monarchy ceases to exist. This cycle of violence will not spare anyone or anything, including the coveted oil installations," he said. Now, what about these predictions? Do they have any validity in light of biblical prophecy? The remarkable and interesting thing is that the Bible has a lot to say about Iran, about Saudi Arabia, and other countries. Now, we have prepared a free booklet, The Middle Eastern and African Nations in Bible Prophecy. If you want to have a free copy of this booklet, just ask for Middle Eastern Nations in Bible Prophecy. In this booklet, we address countries like Iran, Saudi Arabia, other countries like Turkey, Egypt, Libya. And we show you from the Bible what is actually prophesied and what isn't. Now, the interesting thing is that the Bible clearly says that Saudi Arabia will lose its glory. The Bible also says that Iran will lose in a war, and that many of the Iranians will go into captivity. All of that is prophesied. Now, the Bible says that there will be times where Europe will collaborate with some of the countries, like Saudi Arabia, like Iran, but not necessarily at the same time. And there is no indication that any of those countries will become the leader in the Middle East. Now, some say there's going to be a Mahdi coming up out of, let's say, Saudi Arabia, and this Mahdi then will unite everyone in the Middle East against other powers. But the Bible doesn't say anything about that. Now, we have a chapter in this booklet on what the Bible says about a Mahdi, if anything, and what people believe the Mahdi is going to be. And you will see how none of that really makes a lot of sense, what people have assumed is going to happen. You need to know what the Bible says, not what people come up when it comes to speculation and prophetic ideas. The Bible is very clear on these things, and if you want to really know what is in store for Iran, for Saudi Arabia, for other countries in the Middle East, please ask for our free booklet on Middle Eastern Nations in Bible Prophecy. Thank you very much for listening. This is Norbert Link for the Standing Watch program.
Standing Watch is a presentation by The Church of the Eternal God, P.O. Box 270519, San Diego, California 92198. More information is also available at our website, eternalgod.org.